just like wet cardboard. I'm just getting ready to clean up the bottom side of the deck skin. Just have a few high spots and little bits of epoxy and or glass and wood that are sticking up. Sorry, you might hear the fan on in the background, but it's kind of cold, and this is what it looks like outside. So. So I'm just going to grind the bottom side, sand the bottom side, get rid of anything loose, and that'll be ready to start test fitting the deck skin back on. Alright, there's the back side of the skin. It's cleaned up, sanded, roughed up, got any loose wood, any kind of high spots off. There are a few low spots where I don't think it was really bonded well before, right in here. Example, I'll make sure that I have a little extra skim of thickened epoxy in those spots. The center spot that's rather damaged, I'm going to repair that afterwards. Once I get it back on, I'll grind that area down and put some fresh glass in there, and then there's going to be a mass step plate that's going to go on top of there as well, so it'll be solid also. So I'll flip it over, and then I'm going to put a bevel around all the edge, which will just help to taper in that glass seam. There we go, got the that bevel cut in on the piece all the way around. Piece of deck. A little bit of gel coat coming through in a couple spots. I didn't want to go any thinner. It's remove any more material. It is pretty thin there already on that edge, so guess that'll be probably the best. I'm going to go up, try fitting it on the deck, and see how it lines up on the edges. It looks pretty good. Just a little bit of a high spot over on this corner. Had a little bit of epoxy flow out there, so I'll just grind there. Otherwise, I think that looks pretty good. It is a little low back on the port side. I'll put a little extra filler there. Otherwise, it's pretty good. Once that's glued down, I said I'm going to repair where the mass step is. I think I can work with this. Just going to give one last sanding here to make sure I haven't left any high spots, and then I'll give it a good wipe down and get to mixing some thickened epoxy. I'll put a layer down on here, and then I'll even let that set a little bit. I don't mind if it gets a little sticky, and then I'll go and put a coat on the skin, and then I'll come up and try to put the skin on and try to roll the skin on so it presses any air bubbles out as I go. I'll give it a good go with a rubber mallet to tap out any air as well, maybe even a little bit with the vibration from the sander or something as well. Screw down the edges because I can where it's going to get built up with glass, and then I'm going to put lots of weights on it and spread it out, try to get it nice and even, and let it set up. Right, get the epoxy mixed up. It's kind of about the thickness of liquid honey, so it still will bond well to the wood, but won't run away a little bit and have a little bit of substance when I push the deck skin against it. I'll probably mix it a little bit thicker when I get to this edge and I need it to kind of hold in on some of these contours. Just putting in the last little bit of thickened epoxy. This stuff is more peanut butter-ish. Just want to make sure that this area up here is fully filled. This last little bit of extra up where I think it's a little low. A lot of that will probably squeeze out. That's okay. I've got the epoxy spread on the underside of the skin, so I'm going to bring that up and just put it in place and try to roll it out nice and even. I think I'm going to start to screw down the edges so I can keep the air out. I'm just going to start from this side here, and I'm going to work over that side. Try to push all the air out and get everything bonded down as well as possible. There, I got the deck skin all back on, screwed down on the edges. Bit of weight on a couple spots where I found that it wasn't adhering as well. I'll put a few more things on it, and then I'll leave it for the night. So let that cure, and then I'll work on grinding a little bit more down in the seam, just to even it up where it's not even, and then glass that seam up to seal the patch back into the top skin of the deck. I'm quite happy with how it's come out. The deck's all cured up now, and so the skin's back attached. It seems to have adhered well. So all I'm going to do now is just go around the edge and smooth in that transition between the skin on this patch and the rest of it, so that when we put the glass in there, it'll be nice and even and smooth. Get a good bond. Otherwise, so far so good. I have a number of glass strips cut, as well as a few pieces of Kevlar that I'll put on the front seam, where I'm a little more concerned about having shear strength. So next step, I'll just mix up some thickened epoxy, fill in the any little crevices and gaps in along the seam, and then get to the glass work. Right there, I got the glass and Kevlar is all on. Seam looks pretty smooth. It's gone pretty well, I think. So I'll just let that set up, and then I'll kind of grind the edge where the cloth isn't wetted and clean it up. Really happy how well this patch tied in. Glass is all done and it's starting to cure up. Really very even, and shouldn't take too much fairing. A little bit more on this corner. So that corner was a little bit lower. Well, it was higher originally, and then I really had to grind down a fair bit to get it to fit. So there's a little more fairing will be needed on that corner, but otherwise it's all tied back in. I'm gonna let that cure up, and I'll start fairing and sanding it. I'll probably throw that into a video a little bit later, but I think I'm gonna break this one off now and put it up.